I leaned back in my favorite armchair, nursing a cup of coffee as the late afternoon sun filtered through the living room window. The house was quiet, a rare moment of peace in the bustling life of a father of 3 teenagers. My thoughts drifted to Jenny, as they often did in these quiet moments. We'd been high school sweethearts, so young and full of dreams when we tied the knot. I could still remember the nervous excitement as we said our vows, barely out of our caps and gowns. Then came the whirlwind 3 kids in quick succession. Those early years were a blur of diapers, sleepless nights, and first steps. I smiled, recalling how my remote job had been a godsend. The generous parental leave allowed me to be there for every milestone, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. Jenny and I had been a team, tackling parenthood with all the energy of our youth. But as the years passed, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic, no fights, no betrayals. We just slowly realized that the love we shared had evolved. We were better as friends, partners in raising our children rather than romantic partners. The divorce had been amicable, almost anticlimactic. We'd sat the kids down together, explained that while we weren't going to be married anymore, we were still a family. I remember the relief on their faces when they realized this wasn't going to be like the messy divorces they'd seen their friends go through. Now, years later, our unusual arrangement had become our new normal. The kids moved freely between our homes, which were conveniently close. There were no rigid schedules, no arguments over who got them for holidays. We were still a family, just living in 2 houses instead of 1. I took another sip of coffee, feeling grateful for how things had turned out. My extensive experience with pregnancy and childcare, born from those intense early years of parenthood, had led me down an unexpected path. Who would have thought that being a hands-on dad would prepare me for my current line of work? I was lounging on the couch, scrolling through my phone when it buzzed with a text from Jenny. My eyebrows shot up as I read the message. "Hey Mark, weird favor to ask. Remember my friend Heather? She's overdue and desperate. Tried everything. Wondering if you'd be up for, the cervix shaman special." I nearly choked on my coffee. Jenny and I had always been open with each other, but this was a new level. I called her immediately. "Jenny, what the hell?" I said when she picked up. She laughed. That familiar chuckle that still made me smile. I know, it's crazy. But Heather's really struggling. She's almost 2 weeks overdue, and nothing's working. I ran a hand through my hair, processing. "And you thought of me because..." "Well, you've got experience, right? 3 kids plus all that doula training. And let's face it, you've always been good at relaxing people." I couldn't help but laugh. Relaxing people. Is that what we're calling it now? Jenny's tone grew more serious. "Look, I know it's a lot to ask, but Heather's alone in this. Her partner bailed when she got pregnant. She's scared and desperate." I sighed, feeling a mix of sympathy and apprehension. "Jenny, I appreciate the vote of confidence, but this is way outside my usual realm. I mean, fun to induce labor? That's not exactly in my doula handbook." "I know," Jenny said softly, "but you've always been good at helping people, Mark. And Heather needs help. Just think about it." I promised I would and hung up, my mind reeling. The idea was absurd, yet I couldn't shake the sense of compassion I felt for Heather's situation. I'd seen firsthand how challenging pregnancy and childbirth could be, even with a supportive partner, to face it alone. After a few minutes of internal debate, I texted Jenny back. "Okay, I'll talk to her. But no promises." I dialed Heather's number, feeling the blend of intrigue and apprehension mixing. The line buzzed and I held my breath. When she answered, her voice carried exhaustion and hope. "Hello, Heather? This is Mark. Jenny mentioned you might need some assistance." "Hi, Mark. Yes, thank you so much for reaching out. I'm overdue, and nothing I've tried is working. I'm desperate." I could hear the strain in her words, the mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I can't imagine how tough this has been for you. Let's discuss what you're comfortable with and see how I can help." We talked through the specifics, her voice growing steadier as we delved into details. After the call, she agreed to come over later that evening. Heather arrived as the sky bruised with twilight. She stepped inside, a faint smile on her lips, her eyes expressing relief. "Thank you for doing this, Mark," she started, setting her bag down with a weary grace. "You have no idea how much this means to me." "Well, let's make sure you're comfortable first," I replied, leading her to the prepared room, the flicker of candlelight and the scent of lavender aimed to soothe. We began by sitting across from one another. Heather cupped her belly, her expression shifting between vulnerability and resolve. "So how do we start this?" she asked, breaking the palpable tension. "Let's ease into it. Focus on relaxation first," I suggested, reaching to gently massage her hands. The warmth of her skin felt reassuring, and I saw her tension begin to dissipate. She lay back on the softened surface, and I traced feather-light touches along her arms. The room's dim light embraced her, revealing a subtle glow across her features. For a moment, we were suspended in the blend of anticipation and calm. Her intake of breath marked the transition. We started with gentle stimulation. Her eyes closed, her breaths erratic but deepening. This is working," she exhaled, hints of sensation flickering through her voice. The intensity built between us, her hands finding their way to me, guiding my actions. We moved closer, our actions sinking in a natural escalation. More she urged, her need clear, primal. We moved to a pace that ensured full connection. Heather's expressions revealed waves of sensation overtaking her. As we reached the peak, every motion aimed to deliver. Just like that, her voice intertwined with the moment, and we continued until my final release. I focused solely on ensuring our efforts proved fruitful. Heather's whole body shifted, an urgent need replacing the previous intensity. "I think it's happening," she gasped, clutching her belly. I helped her to the car, the remnants of our shared effort harmonizing with the rush to the hospital. By morning, Heather held her daughter, a radiant proof of our connection and actions. The intensity of that night transformed into a new beginning. I stared at the card in my hands, a simple thank you adorning its front. Inside, nestled between Heather's heartfelt words, was $300. My first instinct was to return it, but Heather wouldn't hear of it. "Please," Mark, she insisted over the phone. "It's the least I can do after everything you've done for me." I sighed, torn between accepting her gratitude and feeling like I'd crossed some invisible line. In the end, I compromised by spending most of it on gifts and diapers for her newborn daughter. It felt right, somehow. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. 2 months later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Mark. This is Danielle. I'm a friend of Heather's. She told me about how you helped her. I'm in a similar situation. Would you be willing to talk?" My heart raced as I read the message. I hadn't expected this, hadn't planned for it, but something in me couldn't ignore her plea. I called her back. Danielle's voice was tight with anxiety. "I'm overdue, and I don't have anyone to help me. Heather said you might be able to, you know?" I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. "I can try," I said softly, "but I can't make any promises." That night, Danielle came over. Her eyes were wide with nervousness, but there was determination there too. I guided her through the same thrusting techniques I'd used with Heather. As the hours ticked by, I saw the change come over her. Her breathing deepened, her body relaxed. And then, suddenly, she gasped. I think it's time," she whispered. I drove her to the hospital, holding her hand through each contraction. We made it just in time for her mother to arrive, looking frazzled but relieved. I stepped back, my part done. Hours later, Danielle's son entered the world. When I visited the next day, she looked up at me with tired but grateful eyes. "Thank you, Mark," she murmured, cradling her newborn. "I don't know what I would have done without you." A week later, another card arrived. Another sum of money tucked inside. This time, I accepted it with less hesitation, realizing that perhaps this was becoming something more than just a one-time favor. 2 months into my newfound and unexpected side business, Danielle called again. Her voice brimmed with unease as she detailed her postpartum struggles, an unusually high fund drive, and an oversupply of breast milk that made pumping uncomfortable. By the time I arrived at Danielle's apartment, I could see the tension etched into her features. Her newborn son lay peacefully in a crib nearby, unaware of his mother's turmoil. "Thanks for coming again, Mark," she greeted me, eyes dark with fatigue yet bright with hope. I gave her a reassuring smile. Of course, Danielle. Let's start with whatever is most pressing for you. That evening marked the beginning of a series of visits. Our interactions were intimate, focused on providing her with the relief she desperately needed. Adult nursing sessions became our norm since she found pumping painful and inefficient. I could feel our bond growing stronger with each session. She insisted on compensating me for my time and services, though it felt more like a gesture of gratitude than a transaction. One afternoon between nursing sessions, she turned to me, her eyes filled with something more than just physical relief. "You know, Mark, I've told Heather about how much you've helped me. She thinks you're a godsend. Some of our other friends are curious too." Her words planted a seed. Within weeks, I began receiving more calls. Women introduced by Heather and Danielle sought me out for various needs, an odd mix that ranged from labor induction and satisfaction to massages and help with mundane tasks like setting up nurseries or even trimming pubic hair. Their requests were as diverse as their stories, each carrying a unique blend of vulnerability and strength. My evenings filled up quickly. I embraced this unconventional line of work, recognizing the deep trust these women placed in me during one of the most challenging phases of their lives. Over time, I decided to formalize what had started almost by accident. I became a licensed masseur, specializing in prenatal and postnatal care, and later earned my doula certification. These credentials boosted both my credibility and the demand for my services. It wasn't long before my calendar overflowed with appointments. Each woman brought her own needs and story, and I found fulfillment in being able to provide care and support through these complex, intimate interactions. Through it all, my primary motivation remained the same: to be there, fully and compassionately, during their most vulnerable moments. At the end of another busy week, as I looked at the appointments for the days ahead, I felt a deep sense of purpose. This was more than just a side business. It was a calling, born out of a unique blend of empathy, experience, and an unexpected knack for navigating these intimate landscapes. I understood now what Jenny had jokingly called my gestation gigolo work. It was a lifeline for these women, and I was grateful to be the one holding it. I never expected my life to take this turn, but here I am, balancing my remote work with a unique side business that's grown beyond my wildest dreams. My latest client, Sarah, is perhaps the most intriguing yet. Sarah reached out to me through our mutual acquaintance, Danielle. When we first met, I was struck by her polished appearance, perfectly coiffed hair, designer clothes, and a cross necklace that caught the light. She exuded an air of respectability that seemed at odds with the nature of my services. I hope you can help me," she whispered, her eyes darting nervously around my living room. "My husband, he won't touch me since the baby was born. Says I'm disgusting now." My heart ached for her. I'd heard similar stories before, but the pain in Sarah's voice was palpable. "You're not disgusting," I assured her gently. "Your body has done something incredible. It deserves to be celebrated, not shunned." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. "Thank you," she murmured. "It's just, I have these needs, cravings really. My melons, they're so sensitive now. I can't stop thinking about having them touched." I nodded, understanding. "That's completely normal, Sarah. Many women experience increased sensitivity postpartum. There's nothing wrong with seeking relief." As we talked, Sarah gradually relaxed. She confided in me about the pressure she felt to maintain her image as the perfect Christian wife and mother, all while struggling with desires she felt were sinful. "I feel so ashamed," she admitted, "but I can't deny these urges anymore." "There's no shame in taking care of yourself," I reassured her. "Your well-being matters, Sarah, both physical and emotional." When we began our session, Sarah was tense at first, but as I gently massaged her shoulders and back, she started to unwind. When I moved to her melons, focusing on the middle stimulation, she let out a voice of relief. "Oh God," she breathed. "That feels amazing." I continued, using techniques I'd perfected over the past few months. Sarah's responses were intense, her body arching into my touch. When she ended, it was with a mix of pleasure and catharsis, tears streaming down her face. Afterward, as Sarah got dressed, she seemed lighter somehow. "Thank you, Mark," she said softly. I needed that more than I realized." I smiled warmly. "I'm glad I could help, Sarah. Remember, there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself." As Sarah left, I found myself reflecting on the complex nature of human sexuality and the societal expectations that often stifle it. How many others, I wondered, were struggling silently like Sarah? This experience, along with the increasing demand for my services, made me realize I needed a more professional approach. I spent the next week standardizing my pricing and services, creating a clear menu of options for potential clients. It felt strange putting a price on such intimate acts, but I knew it was necessary to maintain boundaries and ensure fairness. Word of my skills spread quietly through a network of women. They referred to me in hushed tones at AmITheA classes or in private messages on parenting forums. There's this guy, they'd say, he can help with everything. My ex-wife, Jenny, found the whole situation hilarious. She started calling me the cervix shaman and gestation gigolo, nicknames that made me roll my eyes but also chuckle. Her acceptance of my unconventional role meant more to me than I could express. Just be careful, okay, she'd say, her tone a mix of amusement and genuine concern. Don't go breaking any hearts or getting yours broken. I assured her I was being careful, maintaining professional boundaries while still providing the care and support these women needed. And it was true, while I formed meaningful connections with my clients, I never crossed the line into romantic territory. One particularly touching moment came when a client, Melissa, asked me to be her child's godfather. You brought her into this world, she said, cradling her newborn daughter. I want you to be part of her life. I was deeply moved by the gesture, realizing that my work was impacting lives in ways I never imagined. It wasn't just about physical relief or inducing labor, it was about being there for women during some of their most vulnerable moments, offering support and understanding when they needed it most. As I juggled my part-time remote job with my flourishing side business, I found myself more fulfilled than ever before. Each client brought new challenges and rewards, and I was constantly learning and growing.